You want to know which running backs you should be starting or sitting for week 4? We're going game by game through each matchup and all the running backs that matter to tell you who to start or sit. Now, there are still a few running backs that you don't have to worry about. These guys are still set and forget. Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler if he plays, and Saquon Barkley if he comes back. Before we get into those matchups, we have a quick announcement.
Introducing our new app, Draft Lane. Connect with us anytime for your start sit, waiver questions, and more. We can instantly access your roster and tell you the exact right moves to make. Access your past leagues and climb the Draft Lane leaderboard and see how you stack up against your competitors. Both Yahoo and Sleeper are supported. Download Draft Lane today and use the promo code ENDGAME to receive $10 in your account. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
All right, let's kick it off with the Thursday night matchup. Divisional rivalry. We get the Lions again on Thursday night, this time going to visit Green Bay. Let's start with Jahmyr Gibbs. Look, didn't have a monster game without David Montgomery. Could be without Monty again, though. What do you expect this time?
I mean, I was kind of surprised by his usage last week. 17 carries, I didn't expect that, and only one catch, I definitely didn't expect that. Maybe he's better off not being the main guy because they'll actually throw to him more, but this is a better matchup than last week. If he's going to get 17 carries again against the Packers, he should be pretty good this week, so I'm going to roll with him again. If I got Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm starting him.
Yeah, it's odd because I guess you just assume that if he gets that much usage, he's going to go off. He didn't, but look, it was still a good game. You know, he's still probably going to be the main guy here. Thankfully, we didn't see too much of Craig Reynolds. At least if you have Gibbs, you're thankful for that. I don't know if I would say I was early with my boom call. I don't know if I feel a huge game this week from him, but look, if you have him, you pretty much have to start him, I think. And then speaking of David Montgomery, well, he has not been ruled out for this week. It's possible that he goes. If he is back in, then would you play him?
I think you pretty much have to. You know he's going to be the lead back. Again, I talked about it. The Packers, not a strong run defense. He's got touchdown upside. I think if he plays, you're playing him.
Have to admit it. Look, the first couple of games, he looked really good, and this is a great fit for him. This is a good offensive line. They're going to run the ball. So, yeah, he just automatically goes back to being a strong RB2 when he's healthy. And then the Packers have their own injury issues, especially with Aaron Jones having missed last game. If he's back and good to go, is he an auto start?
I don't know if I call him an auto start, but I think he's a guy you pretty much are starting unless you have really good options. The Detroit defense has been much better against the run, going back to even like the second half of last year, but we know Aaron Jones is a super efficient guy. He has home run potential. If he plays this week, you're probably starting him.
Yeah, still a strong start. Again, with just how thin running back has become, probably not a lot of guys out there with his upside, so pretty close to a must start for me if he's good to go. And then I feel like with A.J. Dillon, I think he's proven now 2 games in a row, it kind of doesn't matter if Aaron Jones is there or not. He's just looked bad. You can't play him, can you?
No, Aaron Jones, no Aaron Jones, matchup, doesn't matter. You cannot start A.J. Dillon.
All right, now we're off to London for the Falcons and the Jaguars. Jacksonville always gets the pleasure of going overseas, so it's going to be early start on Sunday. Keep that in mind. Now, with the Falcons, yeah, you're still starting Bijan if you got him. What about Tyler Algier? Do you think that he gets any more usage than usual?
Probably not. He's become completely touchdown or bust at this point. You're just not going to get a lot from this guy if he doesn't score. So most times I would say you're going to sit Tyler Algier this week.
Yeah, the sell-high window closed pretty much after week 2. Right now, he's purely a handcuff. So if you have Bijan, you can stash him. If not, you could probably just kind of leave him on the bench or on waivers. And then what about Travis Etienne? Looked good, but not great just yet. Where does he fall for you?
Again, I think Etienne's one of these guys, if you've got him, you're pretty much starting him. He looked great last week against Houston. He just didn't score, but he put up huge yardage number. This defense, I mean, they're not terrible, but they don't scare me off of Etienne. If I got him, I'm starting him.
Yeah, I definitely shouldn't be worried about the matchup this week. He's always a strong start. I know it's frustrating to see Tank Bigsby get those 1- and 2-yard touchdowns when Etienne's doing most of the work. I mean, don't be surprised if that continues on. So the touchdown upside isn't there, but he's getting you yardage. He's still a strong start. All right, now it's time to prognosticate the Dolphins after last week's massacre of Denver. What is this running game going to do in Buffalo. Let's start with Raheem Mostert, who is, not kidding you, the number one running back in all of fantasy football after 3 weeks.
I mean, it's not a great matchup on the road in Buffalo, but you can't sit Raheem Mostert at this point. You've got to start him if you got him.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter what you think. You can't sit the guy who's the number one player. Look, it's not going to last all season, guarantee that. But it doesn't matter at this point. Whatever he gives you, you're going to find out. You have to start Mostert. But what about Achane, who in his first real action as a rookie, like it didn't count in week 2, he got like 1 carry. Basically helped Mostert to set some records here. Can you just leave him on your bench and risk that again?
No, you can't. I mean, I'm ready to be completely let down by Achane this week against Buffalo, but at the same time, I can't leave him on any of my benches. If you got him, you got to put him in your lineup.
This is going to be one of those guys every single week. You feel like you don't know exactly what you're going to get, but you don't want to find out if he's not in your lineup. So, again, you can't expect a touchdown every week. You definitely can't expect 4, but he could always hit that home run. So, unless you're stacked at running back, find out. The Bills have some good running backs as well, especially James Cook, who is the guy. A lot of people are skeptical, but he's definitely leading the way in this backfield. How do you feel about him going against the Dolphins?
You got to feel really good. He's got the 11th most carries of any running back. I did not expect that for James Cook this year. He looks great. He's averaging over 6 yards per carry. He's explosive. Yeah, he might not score a touchdown, but he gives you enough yards and enough receptions to make up for it. I think if you got James Cook, you're starting James Cook.
Cook has been really good the last 2 weeks. Week 1, not so great because went against the Jets in a road game, tough defense. But he's averaging, like you said, 6 yards a carry. He's finally getting the workload. Just like I said with Etienne, he's getting vultured at the goal line, but he's still a really strong start. And not only that, it seems like he's in line to smash his line on Underdog. If you do those pick'ems, they have them every single week. Right now, it's set to 60.5 rushing yards. He's gone well over that each of the last 2 weeks. And Underdog is once again rolling out a new customer special. This week, Jared Goff just needs a yard. So take that, pair it with maybe the James Cook pick, any other pick you like, and you can triple your money just like that. And you've already doubled it just for getting that deposit match. Just use that promo code ENDGAME. Use the link in the description below. And I also need to mention one of those vultures is Latavius Murray. He's got a couple touchdowns now already. He is the guy who I would say a little bit over Damian Harris because he actually catches passes once in a while. Does Murray have any value in a game like this that could be a high-scoring game?
I mean, maybe in very deep leagues where you're desperate and you're hoping he scores once or twice, which he can do, but that's really it. I think in most cases you should be benching Latavius Murray.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, I know it's early, but some of you are really thin at running back already. He's not the worst option if you need somebody, but again, it should only be in emergency situations. Vikings taking on the Panthers, looking for their first win. Both of these teams are. All right, Alexander Mattison, what does his future hold, at least for this week?
I think he's still the guy this week. I mean, outside of a fumble and a terrible drop pass, he looked all right last week. It was a good matchup against the Chargers. This isn't as good, but the Panthers also aren't a scary run defense. I think he's a solid start this week.
I'm really worried about him for fantasy football because you look at the yardage, like he did all right performance-wise, but you can't keep having the drops, and especially the fumbles. It just keeps happening. Look, they went out and got Akers. And don't forget that Cam Akers has a history with Kevin O'Connell, which is why the Vikings took him on, because back when they were the Rams together, Akers' rookie year, I think we see Madison's workload cut. This is not as good of a matchup, even as last week. I think he's barely startable. And then speaking of Akers, didn't suit up last week because he just got traded midweek. Does he play this week? How much? And any chance he's fantasy relevant?
I think he plays. How much? I don't think he plays a lot this week. I'm not ready to put him in lineups just yet.
Agree. An intriguing bench stash or hold if you didn't drop him. But yeah, you cannot trust that he's going to do anything this week, even though going against the Panthers. And then there's Miles Sanders. Has been underwhelming so far, but he's still the guy there, and he does get the Vikings this week.
Yeah, I really like Miles Sanders this week. The volume is there. The opportunity is there. The results just haven't been. maybe the Vikings are the defense he needs to get the results. I am starting Miles Sanders.
Yeah, I'd say he's still a decent RB2. I like him better than guys like Madison. I don't know if the old Miles Sanders, who's got that burst, it just doesn't look like he's there yet. We'll see. Another matchup of winless teams when Denver takes on Chicago. Well, hopefully you don't have too many players on your fantasy roster from this matchup, but let's say you have Javonte Williams. What are you looking at?
I mean, most of the time I'm going to say sit Javonte Williams, but against the Bears, if there's going to be a game to start him, it's going to be this game. I'm not going to say he's a guy you have to start, or I think he's a solid start, but I think he's definitely in that flex him if you need him kind of category.
I mean, I will say this should be his best game so far, but what is that going to be? Maybe 70-ish yards, something like that. I'd say he's a starting running back if you really, really need him, but I don't want to start him still if I don't have to. And then I think I'm definitely going to say Samaje Perine. Had some hopes for him in the preseason. Those hopes are all gone. You can't put him in any lineups.
Nah, not even in this matchup. You cannot start him.
Will Chicago get a running game going of any sort? Let's start with Rashawn Johnson. It seems like he's kind of the lead guy at this point.
Yeah, I know people are going to get excited. They're going to be like, it's the Broncos. Look what the Dolphins just did to them. But this is the Bears, not the Dolphins. I mean, desperation start only, and only because the matchup is so good.
Yeah, I like Rashawn Johnson long-term still. Man, you can't start Bears, can you, on offense? Even against this Denver defense that has looked so bad. So I'm going to say sit. Khalil Herbert, sit. There's no way I can talk myself into this.
No, sitting Herbert. At least Rashawn Johnson looks like some juice and he catches some passes. No way I can start Herbert.
Ravens taking on the Browns. It's like a repeat from last year. Baltimore running backs keep dropping like flies. Gus Edwards was the guy last week and then left with a concussion. So not sure if he will even play this game. If he does, would you start him?
I liked him last week, and he was having a nice game before the concussion. But, man, I mean, against the Browns, this defense looks tremendous. He's not going to catch passes. You really are just banking on a touchdown. So I'm going to say no to Gus Edwards this week.
This Cleveland defense just shut down Derrick Henry. I think they can shut down Gus Edwards. So, yeah, I'm not going to start Gus even if he's a full go. And then if Gus Edwards doesn't go, it looks like we're going to get the resurrection of Melvin Gordon in Baltimore. Would that interest you?
Hard pass on Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to pass on Melvin Gordon too. Now, what about Jerome Ford? Look, the rushing numbers weren't good last week against a tough run defense. Now he gets the Ravens. Not a smash spot, but maybe it is because look what Zach Moss just did to that defense last week. So how do you feel about Ford?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel great about him. This isn't, a total smash spot, and the Ravens do have a good defense, but he's running behind a good offensive line. He's catching passes. He's getting goal line work. He's getting goal line targets. So I think Jerome Ford this week is a solid start.
I mean, I don't feel tremendous about the matchup itself, but I feel great about Jerome Ford. Like you just said, he's getting everything you want in running back. The lion's share of the carries, pass catching work, goal line work, touchdown upside. Yeah, if I have Jerome Ford, I'm pretty much just rolling him in my lineup every week going forward. But Kareem Hunt is there. Didn't get a lot of snaps last week. Does it increase enough this week?
Enough? Like to start him? Definitely not.
I'm probably not going to say yes to Kareem Hunt, just like I'm not going to say no to Jerome Ford this season. Steelers, Texans. Are we going to do it again? Are we going to keep some faith in Najee Harris just because of the matchup?
I can't do it. I just can't. I mean, he's got to score a touchdown, right? That's it. That's all he has. Like, he's not catching enough passes, not ripping off long runs. I know it's the Texans, and you say always start your running backs against the Texans, but I'm only going to put Najee in the start him if you need him category, and that's only because it's the Texans.
Exactly. He's startable if you're one of those teams that's got so many injuries, but yeah, I think we've seen enough at this point. He's not even getting, most of the touches in that backfield. Jaylen Warren still lurks, so you could start Najee, but he's not a strong recommendation. What about Jaylen Warren? I mean, a lot of people think he should be the lead back. I don't know if he will be, but do you prefer him to Najee?
No, I don't really prefer either of these guys, to be honest. I mean, Jaylen Warren, same thing. Like, just if he doesn't score a touchdown, what are you really getting here? I mean, Desperation flex only because it's a good matchup.
Yeah, I think I just prefer not to have a piece of the Steelers' backfield at this point if I don't have to. Then Dameon Pierce, fantasy owners rejoice. He scored a touchdown and did something. But look, he was still actually pretty bad on the ground.
Yeah, and now against the Steelers, who, look, they've been bad in the secondary, but they've still been good against the run. Not starting Dameon Pierce.
No, Pierce shaping up so far to be a bust. His rushing average is horrible. The offensive line is horrible. The matchup isn't great. I think I'm going to sit Dameon Pierce again. Rams at the Colts. Still Connor Williams' backfield. What do you think he does against Indy?
Do what he does. He'll get the bulk of the snaps, the bulk of the carries. He'll catch some passes. Maybe he can score. I think if you got Kyren Williams, you're starting Kyren Williams.
Yeah, I mean, until further notice, it's his world. You know, Sean McVay will run him into the ground whenever that happens. Colts, not a defense to fear, so Kyren Williams, a strong start. And then the same could be said for Zach Moss, another running back you just plucked off of waivers who's owning his backfield, and he looked good against Baltimore. I think he can do just fine against the Rams.
Yeah, at least until JT comes back. If he comes back, Zach Moss is a guy you can just plug into your lineup every single week.
Yeah, not an absolute must start, but definitely a strong option as an RB2. Tampa Bay is going to New Orleans, take on the Saints. This will be known as the Jameis Winston revenge game. But what about in the backfield here for Tampa? We got Rachaad White, still technically the workhorse for Tampa. Not putting up huge numbers. Do you think you do anything in this matchup?
Man, it just feels like every week Rachaad White just faces these brutal defensive matchups, but he's getting the volume. He's actually starting to catch passes again, right? Week 1, it was like, oh my gosh, he's not catching passes. Now he's catching passes again, which we like to see. So definitely not a must start, but I think, because of the volume and his pass catching, he's startable.
Yeah, kind of a low-end RB2. Like you said, I feel like Tampa keeps getting these tough draws, especially against running backs. I don't love traveling to New Orleans for a running back, so I'm not starting him if I don't have to, but he is startable. Some good news for New Orleans, possibly. Alvin Kamara is eligible to come back after that 3-game suspension. What do you think we see from him in his first game back? Do you think he gets a full workload?
Probably not. I mean, he hasn't played football in how many weeks now? Kendre Miller is healthy. I think he gets a decent workload. But look, if you've held on to Alvin Kamara this long, even against a tough Tampa Bay run defense, are you really benching him? Probably not. I think if you got Kamara and you've held him, you're mostly probably starting him.
I kind of view him right now in a similar way for fantasy as I do as Rachaad White. He'll catch some passes, which gives him a floor. It's not a terrible matchup. It's not a good one either. He's probably going to get most of the carries. So I don't love him, and I'm definitely not in on him this year, and I don't have him anywhere. But look, if you do have him, again, I'd prefer not to start him, but you can if you need to. And then what about Kendre Miller? Not an overwhelming performance in his debut. What does he do? Do you think he gets any more work this week?
I think he might get some more work, but it's a tough matchup. And, with Kamara back now, gonna hurt his upside a bit. I don't think I could start Kendre Miller this week.
Nah, still a guy I would stash for the future in case things happen. But, yeah, you can't start Kendre Miller this week. The Commanders will go to Philadelphia, take on the Eagles. Brian Robinson still looking solid. I mean, you can't say that for the entire Washington offense, but he's doing his part. But what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, not a good matchup at all. And Sam Howell, I mean, man, if we keep getting this version of Sam Howell, this whole offense is in trouble. But look, Brian Robinson is getting the volume. He has touchdown upside. Again, kind of like Rachaad White. Not a guy I feel like you have to start, but he's still startable.
Yeah, and look, as far as some of these guys we've just talked about, I put him a little bit higher than the Rachaad White of Alvin Kamara types. I put him more in like the Zach Moss, Kyren Williams kind of tier, which is to say that I think I feel still pretty good about him, even in tough matchups. This isn't a smash spot, but I think I would feel okay with him in my lineup. And then Antonio Gibson, showing some flashes, but is there enough volume there for him?
Well, it looks like the way this is going to work is when the Commanders are in close games or winning, we're not going to see a lot of Gibson, but when they're getting blown out, we'll see plenty of Gibson. So do we think they're going to get blown out this week? I mean, there's a possibility, but do I really want to put a guy in my lineup that is only going to get work if they're getting blown out? Not really. So I'm still sitting Antonio Gibson.
Oh, I could definitely see them get blown out by Philadelphia. But again, he's kind of just an emergency flex. And then for Philadelphia, I think it looks like DeAndre Swift is still the lead dog there, although Sirianni said it'll be kind of a hot hand approach, whatever that means. I'm thinking it's Swift. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to get, be the technical lead here, but Kenneth Gainwell is kind of involved, I guess. So I still like Swift. I still like his upside. I think for the most part, if you have Swift, you're starting him.
Yeah, this defense is pretty good, but it doesn't scare me off of starting Swift. He's still a high upside RB2. Can always go for a big run. He catches some passes. Touchdown upside. I like it all. So I think he's a solid RB2. And for that reason, I'll say I'm not really that interested in Kenneth Gainwell. To me, he's just kind of like bench depth.
Exactly. It's fine if he's on your bench, but not in your starting lineup.
Bengals at the Titans. Got Joe Mixon facing one of the toughest run defenses in the league. Does that mean that you might consider sitting him?
If you have better options, you can consider sitting Joe Mixon. It's a brutal matchup. But look, he's going to catch passes. He's going to get most of the run. He's got touchdown upside. So I'm not going to say you have to sit him. I think he's still startable.
I would sit him if I could because it's not like he's done anything amazing this year. And we've seen this Tennessee defense 3 weeks in a row really shut down running backs. What is Mixon's ceiling really these days? To me, he's kind of touchdown dependent. So, not a must sit because there are plenty of running backs I wouldn't like better than Mixon, but if I could afford to, I'm benching him. Raiders taking on the Chargers. Josh Jacobs, still a guy you want to start. On the other side, Austin Eckler is the guy you want to start, but if he's not back, it's more Josh Kelly. I mean, look, at this point, we can't just keep believing in a guy who has not taken advantage of good matchups.
No, I'm not going to fall for this Raiders trap. I fell for the trap last week against the Vikings. Not falling for it this week. No way am I starting Joshua Kelly.
Can't do it. Not only is he not startable at this point, I think we can just go ahead and drop him because right now he's just hurting you by taking up a roster spot. Patriots taking on the Cowboys. Let's start with Ramondre Stevenson. Hasn't really gotten it going yet this season. Does he do that in Dallas?
I don't know if he gets it going, but look, James Conner put up some nice runs against this defense, and if the Cowboys bounce back and have a better game at home, which they probably will, that could mean the Patriots are playing from behind, which means receptions for Ramondre. If I got Ramondre, he's still in my lineup this week.
Yeah, looking more like a floor play than anything else these days. I'm not giving up on Ramondre. I think he's still a decent RB2. And then we have to talk about Zeke because, first of all, he actually outrushed Ramondre last week, but also this is the revenge game, or maybe it's not. I don't know, the homecoming, whatever you want to call it. Zeke back in Dallas. What do you think he does?
I think we probably see the best Zeke we've seen in years. I wouldn't be surprised if Zeke is running harder than we've seen him run in many, many years because it is Dallas. But at the same time, that's not enough to make me want to start him. I'm not starting him.
Yeah, the narratives are always nice, but in reality, we have to look at analytics. I think you could flex him, or again, you're hard for a running back. You could put him in there, but I'm not going out of my way to do it. Arizona at San Francisco. James Conner has been a beast, really, keeping this Arizona team competitive and just had a big game against Dallas. Can he do it against the Niners?
Yeah, this is a brutal spot, but at the same time, how can you really sit James Conner at this point? I think if you've got James Conner, unless you have fantastic other options, you're starting him.
I think you pretty much have to. I'll say it again. The things you look for with a running back in fantasy, getting the big market share of touches. He's getting all the touches, all of them for his backfield. Catches passes, check. And can score touchdowns, not pulled near the goal line, check. He checks all the boxes. You wish he was in a better overall offense, but hey, Arizona has been solid and competitive. Got to give them props for that. So even in a tough matchup, I think you have to keep rolling Conner. Chiefs at the Jets. Isaiah Pacheco, pretty good game last week, although he did get technically vultured on a couple of touchdowns. I'm going to call it that. What about on the road in New York?
Can't feel great about him this week against the Jets. He can always score, but for me this week in this matchup, he's going to be more of like a start him if you need him guy.
Yeah, I think he pretty much is what he always is. A volatile, kind of borderline RB2. Can make some big plays, could score a touchdown, but just doesn't get the volume. And See what happens. Guys like McKinnon score touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still there. So risky, but potential RB2 or flex. And I just mentioned McKinnon. Now he's finding the end zone. Is this going to be a thing again where he gets hot, or is it just kind of an outlier game?
I mean, it feels like an outlier game, but it's Jerick McKinnon. He can always just get hot. But are you really willing to test it out this week to see if he's on a heater? It's not week 14 or week 15. It's week 4. You shouldn't need Jerick McKinnon, even in this running back landscape. I'm not starting him.
Yeah, let's remember last week was against the Bears. This is the Jets. Very different defense. Can't risk McKinnon. Then there's that Jets backfield. Really hope that y'all didn't invest too heavily in, but if you did, Breece Hall, what do you do?
You can't start him. I mean, look, he got almost 50% of the snaps last week and still did nothing, but that game was close. This is the Chiefs. They're going to get blown out. I don't care how good the Jets' defense is. This offense isn't going to be able to do anything. The defense is going to play the whole game. They're going to be gassed. They're going to get blown out, and that's going to game script Breece out of this game. He still doesn't look, 100%. You can't start him.
Can't start Breece Hall. Nope. Can't do it. Dalvin Cook, I'm just going to say, not only should you not be starting him, I don't even think you need to hold on to him anymore.
No, I don't even need to justify why you're sitting Dalvin Cook. If you're starting him, enjoy your loss.
And then Monday night, we got Seattle taking on the Giants. Well, we know we got in Seattle. It's Kenneth Walker coming off a big game. He's scoring touchdowns, but I know you're a little skeptical. Do you think he can do something similar against, it's a pretty bad Giants defense?
Yeah, that's the thing. He's had 2 really good matchups in a row. I know 2 weeks ago he didn't do a lot on the ground, but he scored twice. Last week had a great matchup. Has another great matchup this week. You got to start Kenneth Walker if you got him.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to start him this week. I know some people are saying that touchdowns aren't sustainable. I get that. I'm not ready to sell on him, but I'm definitely starting him this week. And then maybe you can consider selling high. And then there's a good chance Saquon Barkley does miss if it is a high ankle sprain. That means we get Matt Breida, the Warrior, as the RB1 for the Giants. Interested?
Barely. I mean, he scored last week to, I guess, salvage a complete bust of a week, but what are you really expecting here? This Giants offense looks terrible. The offensive line looks terrible. He absolutely has to score. I can't start Matt Breida.
Well, I actually expect very similar to last week because he scored, like you said, Seattle's given up 5 touchdowns to running backs. There's a good chance he scores again. Well, maybe not a good chance, but there's a chance. And there's also a good chance that he doesn't put up a lot of yardage and do much. So in a standard league, in a pinch, I think you could roll him out, but hopefully you have better options. That's our take on all the running backs for week 4. You need help at other positions, we got you covered. Also, waiver wire, panic players, everything you need to help win. We've got it right here in our week 4 playlist.